Mr. Prasad, yesterday morning when we had the conversation, both of us said that uh, Prime Minister, late Prime Minister Dr. Singh would say that the history would be kinder to me, or history would be kinder to our the work which the UPA did. And if you look at the coverage, if you look at the global commentary on Dr. Manmohan Singh, it actually proves him right. It proves him right when he is
Ye-
not there.
Yes, I think Karthikeya, that was a very apt summation of Dr. Singh's contribution and legacy. And in fact, yesterday I was discussing with another former colleague, or rather journalist, who's not in Delhi, and we were just exchanging notes. I said the outpouring of sentiment looks universal. There was nobody who was saying a voice which was different, in the sense they all acknowledged, and there was genuine grief about the passing away of Dr. Manmohan Singh, because most people did somewhere or the other associate with him in some form and fashion. Much of has been already been said in the last 24 hours, repeated, printed, said. The fact that he was his simplicity, his humility, and extreme kindness, a man who was soft spoken. So those are the characteristics that always leave a lasting impression. He was not, I mean, he may not, but he towers by his very work. And as I think I did mention one of the pieces which I did, I said he always wanted his work to speak for himself. He never spoke what he was. So that, I think, yesterday got personified in the sense of everybody's outpouring, the kind of tributes, as you said, coming from world leaders, somebody who had experienced his sagacity, his wisdom, his wiseness. Uh, Especially, as I said, 2008, I remember very clearly the subprime crisis that hit America, and the whole world was in this grip. And here was Dr. Manmohan Singh, the Prime Minister of India, a leader whose economic handling of economy was already had a fame. And he was listened to by them. All of them listened to him. And as I think you mentioned it yesterday, the entire P5 country leadership had visited India in the year two, which is unusual in a calendar year. It's a very great diplomatic kind of thing. It showed the way of the amount of stature that he had. I think, Karthikeya, you're very right when you actually said that the kind of coverage he's got, or the kind of remembering the people are remembering him and genuinely remembering him. I got a message from a journalist who was all the way who come from Cuba, and that person sends me a message, a picture of Dr. Manmohan Singh shaking hands with the iconic Fidel Castro. So I said, wow, this is a great picture. And I just questioned the timeline. So, that shows somebody who we met maybe once in a year as part of a journalistic journey. And here, after suddenly, that person sends me this picture of Dr. Singh. So that explains the connect halfway across the globe to Karthikeya.
Yes, Mr. Prasad. Another important thing is when you recall a person, who do you speak to? How do you speak to that person? Yesterday I was able to speak to Mr. Pachori. I was able to speak to Mr. Khare, and both of them had two things to say. And today you'll be happy that in our panel we'll be joined by Deepak Sandhu,
Yeah.
and we will also be joined by Neelam Kapoor. Two
Yeah. And
women
both of them worked very closely
two
with him.
women who worked very closely with Dr. Manmohan Singh, and it will be a privilege to have both these women on board with us, and we will have them, and we will have a great conversation on Dr. Singh, and we'll also be joined by Aditi Fadnes, someone who has covered this government very closely. But Deepak Sandhu, who also headed the PIB, went on to become the media advisor in the last throes of the 2009, and then Neelam Kapoor, who actually held PIB for 5 years and very closely worked with PMO, and someone who was press officer to Dr. Manmohan Singh in 1991.
Karthikeya, you're right. I think Deepak Sandhu was, if you remember, when the Prime Minister had to undergo a redo surgery for his heart in the year 2008, 2009, and she was the points person speaking for the government from the PMO. And I mean, you all remember, you've been a television man for a long time. People were running live commentaries, doing a story of how the Dr. Panda, who had come down to do the surgery, how the whole process was recalled. The whole nation was engrossed. So I think they watched and worked from very close quarters. I'm sure they'll bring a value addition. And you mentioned of Dr. Khare, who was the media advisor to Prime Minister, as was Pankaj Pachauri. In fact, Dr. Khare wrote a piece in one of the news portals where he mentioned about his personal anecdotes as to, you mentioned the word Democrat, and he explained in one particular sentence that they were traveling, they'd gone down to, I think, Golden Temple, where Dr.